I buried my wife on a cold Tuesday morning, and I truly believed that was the end of my life. The sky was gray, heavy like it was about to collapse, and the wind kept tugging at my black coat as if even it wanted to pull me back into the ground with her. 38 years of marriage, lowered into a hole and covered with dirt, while strangers murmured polite condolences I could barely hear. Her name was Eleanor. She was my whole world. Or at least, that's what I thought until a stranger handed me a key. But before I tell you about him, let me tell you about me. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 67 years old. I worked as an insurance adjuster for most of my life. Quiet job. Quiet man. Eleanor used to joke that I blended into the walls wherever I went. No enemies. No secrets. Just a simple man who loved his wife deeply and believed she loved him back just as much. If you're enjoying this story so far, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. And while you're at it, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, your city or country. And if you've ever discovered a secret about someone you loved, one that changed everything. I'd really like to hear that too. The funeral was small. Eleanor didn't like crowds. Even in life, she preferred quiet corners, soft music, and conversations that stayed just between us. Our daughter couldn't make it in time. Flight delays, weather issues, so it was mostly neighbors, a few old coworkers, and people from church. I stood there alone as the last hymn faded. That's when I noticed him. He wasn't part of the service. I was sure of that. He stood a little away from the group, near an old oak tree at the edge of the cemetery. Tall. Dark coat. No umbrella, even though the rain had started to fall lightly. He wasn't crying. He wasn't praying. He was watching me. I remember thinking how strange that was. Funerals have a certain look, grief, sadness, shared pain. But this man looked focused. Like he was waiting for something. I tried to ignore him. After the final goodbyes, people slowly drifted away. Cars pulled out. The cemetery grew quiet. I stayed behind, staring at the fresh mound of earth that held the woman I loved for nearly 4 decades. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Mr. Reed. I turned around. The stranger stood just a few feet away now. Close enough that I could see the faint scar running along his jawline. His eyes were sharp, calculating, but not unkind. Yes? I said cautiously. I'm sorry for your loss, he said. His voice was calm, steady. Too steady. Did you know my wife? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, metallic, and old. A key. It was heavy for its size. Brass, worn down, with a number etched faintly near the top. He pressed it into my hand and closed my fingers around it. Your wife wanted you to have this, he said. My heart skipped. What is this? I asked. You'll know soon, he replied. I felt a sudden surge of anger. Who are you? And what do you mean she wanted me to have it? He met my eyes. She didn't tell you everything, Thomas. Hearing my name from a stranger sent a chill through me. Don't say things like that, I snapped. Today of all days. He nodded slowly. I understand. But you deserve the truth. And this key, it's the beginning. Beginning of what? I demanded. But he was already stepping back. One more thing, he said. When you use it, don't go alone. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing between the gravestones like a ghost. I stood there frozen, rain soaking through my coat, staring at the key in my palm. Eleanor never kept secrets from me. Or so I believed. That night I couldn't sleep. The house felt emptier than ever. Her slippers were still by the door. Her mug sat in the sink, untouched. The lavender scent she loved still lingered on the pillow beside me. I kept replaying the stranger's words in my head. She didn't tell you everything. At around 2 in the morning, I got up and went to her dresser. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe reassurance. Maybe proof that the man was lying. I opened the top drawer. That's when I noticed something missing. Eleanor always kept her old blue notebook there. She wrote grocery lists in it. Little reminders. Occasionally, poems she was too shy to show anyone. The notebook was gone. I checked the closet. The bathroom. Her nightstand. Nothing. My chest tightened. I sat on the bed, the key cold in my hand, and tried to remember the last few months of our life together. Had she been distant? Yes, a little. Had she taken more phone calls outside? Sometimes. Had she seemed distracted? I thought it was stress. Or age. Or fear of getting sick again. Never secrets. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, my hands shaking. That's when I noticed something else. Her spare phone. Eleanor had an old phone she used occasionally for games and photos. She hated throwing things away. It was always in the junk drawer by the fridge. The drawer was empty. Now my heart was racing. I searched the house like a man possessed. Drawers. Cabinets. Basement. Garage. Finally, in a box labeled Christmas lights, I found it. The phone was turned off. I sat on the cold concrete floor and stared at it for a long time before pressing the power button. It lit up immediately. No lock screen. No password. As if she wanted someone to find it. The first thing I saw wasn't messages. It was a map. A single location pinned in red. And beneath it, a note. If anything happens to me, this is where the answers are. My breath caught. The location matched the number etched on the key. I realized then that the funeral wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of something Eleanor had planned long before she died. And whatever she was hiding, it was big enough to send a stranger to my wife's grave. I sat there in the dark, phone glowing in my hands, key digging into my palm, knowing one thing for certain. The woman I loved for 38 years had a life I never knew about. And I was about to step straight into it. I didn't go back to bed that night. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, staring at Eleanor's old phone and that damned red pin on the map. Every few minutes, I picked up the key, turned it over in my fingers, and tried to imagine where it fit. A locker? A door? A box buried somewhere? I kept hoping the location was close. Somewhere harmless. Somewhere that would explain everything without tearing the last pieces of my heart apart. It wasn't. The address led to a storage facility nearly 40 miles outside town, right off a half-forgotten highway lined with dead trees and abandoned gas stations. The kind of place you only go to when you don't want to be seen. The stranger's warning echoed in my head. Don't go alone. I hated that he was already right about one thing. I didn't feel safe going by myself. By mid-morning, I called my younger brother Michael. We hadn't been close in years. Life does that. But he answered on the second ring. Tom, he said. I heard about Eleanor. I'm so sorry. Thanks, I replied quietly. Mike, I need a favor. An hour later, he pulled into my driveway. When he saw my face, his expression shifted from sympathy to concern. You look like you haven't slept, he said. I haven't, I replied. And I think my wife was keeping secrets from me. That got his attention. We drove in silence for most of the trip. I finally showed him the phone, the map, the key. He didn't interrupt, didn't judge. Just listened. When the storage facility came into view, my stomach twisted. It was surrounded by a rusted chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. The sign out front read Riverside Secure Storage, the word secure peeling like a bad joke. A single office sat near the gate, windows dark. This place gives me a bad feeling, Mike muttered. You and me both, I said. We parked near Unit 317. The number matched the key exactly. My hands trembled as I slid the key into the lock. For a moment, it wouldn't turn. I thought maybe this was all a mistake. Then it clicked. The metal door rattled as I rolled it upward, the sound echoing across the empty lot. Inside, the unit was spotless. Too spotless. No dust. No clutter. No old furniture or boxes like you'd expect. Just a single wooden table in the center, and a large black duffel bag resting on top of it. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure Mike could hear it. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Cleaning chemicals mixed with something metallic. Not blood. Not exactly. But close enough to make my skin crawl. I unzipped the duffel bag. Stacks of cash. Neatly bundled, organized by denomination. Hundreds. Thousands. Tens of thousands. I stumbled back, nearly falling. "What the hell is this?" Mike whispered. I shook my head. "I don't know." Beneath the money was a folder. Inside it were documents. Bank statements. Offshore accounts. Transfers dated back more than 15 years. And photographs. Eleanor. Sitting at cafe tables with men I didn't recognize. Entering buildings I'd never seen. One photo showed her standing beside the stranger from the cemetery. My vision blurred. "She was cheating on you," Mike said quietly, anger rising in his voice. "No," I snapped, surprising even myself. "I don't think so." "How can you say that?" he demanded. Because in every photo, Eleanor looked terrified. Not guilty. Not romantic. Terrified. I picked up the last item in the bag. A flash drive. My hand shook as I plugged it into my phone. A single video file appeared. I pressed play. Eleanor's face filled the screen. She looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Dark circles under her eyes. She was sitting in what looked like a motel room, the curtains drawn. "Tom," she said softly. "If you're watching this, then I didn't make it." My chest tightened so hard I thought I might pass out. "I'm so sorry," she continued. "I wanted to tell you everything so many times." But the more I learned, the more dangerous it became. She took a shaky breath. 15 years ago, I witnessed something I wasn't supposed to. An exchange. Money. Names. Faces. I thought it was just corruption. I thought I could forget it. She laughed bitterly. "They didn't forget me." Images flashed on the screen, men in suits, handshakes, briefcases. "They threatened you first," she said. "They said accidents happen." I believed them. My heart broke open. That money, it's not ours. It's leverage. Insurance. They think it's gone. And as long as they think that, you're safe. Tears streamed down my face. "I knew if I told you, you'd try to protect me," she whispered. "And that would get you killed." The video ended. Silence swallowed the storage unit. Mike looked at me, his face pale. "Tom, this is serious." I nodded slowly. Everything made sense now. The late nights. The phone calls. The distance. The fear I'd mistaken for illness. She hadn't been living a double life. She'd been living in hiding. As we left the facility, a black sedan pulled into the lot. My pulse spiked. The driver didn't get out. Just sat there, engine idling, windows tinted. The same car followed us onto the highway. I gripped the steering wheel. "Mike," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I think Eleanor wasn't just protecting me." "From what?" he asked. I watched the sedan in the rearview mirror. "From what comes next." And for the first time since her funeral, I understood one terrifying truth. My wife didn't die by accident. And whoever sent that stranger with the key was watching me now. The black sedan stayed with us for almost 10 miles. It never got close enough to force us off the road. Never fell far enough back to lose sight of. Just there, like a reminder. By the time we reached my house, my nerves felt raw. The sedan slowed as we turned into the neighborhood, then kept going, disappearing around the corner. That didn't make me feel better. That made it worse. Inside, Mike locked the door behind us without saying a word. He pulled the curtains shut, then turned to face me. "You're not staying here alone tonight," he said. "I don't think I have a choice," I replied quietly. We sat at the kitchen table again. The same place where I'd spent the night before, believing my grief was the worst thing I'd ever feel. Now grief felt simple, manageable, compared to fear. I played Eleanor's video again. And again. Each time, I noticed something new. The way her eyes kept drifting toward the door. The way her voice dropped whenever she mentioned names. The way she avoided saying who they were. "They threatened you first," she'd said. That line wouldn't leave me alone. "She thought they'd hurt you," Mike said, reading my thoughts. "That means you matter to them. Your leverage." "I've been invisible my whole life," I muttered. "Why would anyone care about me?" Mike leaned forward. "Because you were married to her." That night, I slept on the couch with the lights on and the phone beside me. Every sound made my heart jump. Every car passing outside sent my pulse racing. Sometime near dawn, the phone vibrated. A text message. Unknown number. "You opened the unit." My hands went cold. Another message followed almost immediately. "Good. That means Eleanor trusted you enough to finish what she started." I stared at the screen, unsure whether to reply. Then another message came. "We need to talk." Against every instinct I had, I typed back. "Who is this?" The response came slower this time. "Someone who owes your wife his life." An hour later, I was sitting in a diner on the edge of town, nursing a cup of coffee I hadn't touched. Mike sat across from me, tense, eyes constantly scanning the room. The man from the cemetery walked in right on time. He slid into the booth beside me, calm as ever. "My name is Daniel," he said. "Eleanor and I work together." "Doing what?" Mike snapped. Daniel ignored him. "Protecting people who couldn't protect themselves." I let out a bitter laugh. "With stolen money and secret storage units?" "With evidence," Daniel corrected. "That money is proof. Every dollar is traceable. Every transfer tied to names that shouldn't exist on paper." He leaned closer. "Your wife was a witness in a case that never went to court. Too many powerful people. Too much influence. Then why not go public?" I asked. Daniel's expression darkened. "Because going public gets people killed." Quietly. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, new ones. Recent ones. "They'd been searching for the money," he said. "They believe Eleanor hid it. When she died, they assumed it died with her." "And now?" Mike asked. "And now they know she passed it to you." My chest tightened. "So what happens to me?" Daniel met my eyes. "That depends on whether you run, or finish what she started." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him I was a 67-year-old widower who still forgot where he left his glasses. I wasn't built for conspiracies and danger. But Eleanor was. And she trusted me. "She left more for you," Daniel continued. "Not just the money. Not just the video." He slid a small notebook onto the table. Blue. Eleanor's. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were names. Dates. Locations. Notes written in her neat, familiar handwriting. "Don't trust anyone who asks too many questions. Daniel is safe. If Tom ever sees this, it means I failed, but he must not stop." I swallowed hard. "She knew she might die," I whispered. "She knew," Daniel said softly. The truth hit me then, heavier than anything I'd felt before. Eleanor hadn't been hiding from me. She'd been preparing me. That afternoon, Daniel took us to a small house on the outskirts of the city. It looked abandoned, peeling paint, overgrown yard, boarded windows. Inside, it was anything but. Monitors lined the walls. Maps. Files. Surveillance footage. "This is where we've been working," Daniel said. "Your wife was the last piece." Mike stared around in disbelief. "How deep does this go?" Daniel didn't answer directly. Deep enough that once you're in, there's no walking away. That night, as I sat alone in that house, Eleanor's notebook open in my lap, I finally allowed myself to feel something other than fear. Anger. They had taken my wife. Not just her life, but the years she spent carrying this burden alone. The nights she lay awake, terrified, smiling through it all so I wouldn't suspect a thing. She had protected me. Now it was my turn. I looked at the final page of the notebook. Written in bold letters, underlined twice. If they come for him, release everything. I closed the book. Outside, a car engine started. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. Because I finally understood the truth Eleanor had hidden so carefully. She hadn't been running from danger. She'd been holding it back. And now, she'd handed it to me. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the monitors and the occasional click of a keyboard from Daniel. Mike sat stiffly on a folding chair, still trying to process everything. I, on the other hand, felt a strange mixture of fear and resolve. Eleanor had handed me a war. And now, it was my turn to fight. Daniel handed me a folder thicker than my forearm. Inside were files, pictures, surveillance logs, and notes Eleanor had meticulously kept over the years. These people, he said, don't play fair. Money, influence, threats, they'll use everything to get what they want. Eleanor spent years mapping them out. She trusted you enough to finish it. I ran my fingers over the paper, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down like a stone on my chest. Where do I even start? I asked. Where she left off, Daniel replied. Unit 317 was just the beginning. She traced them. She observed them. She documented everything. They think she's gone. They think the threat ended with her death. I swallowed hard. That thought made my stomach churn. If they were watching, they would come for me. And Mike. But Eleanor's careful planning. It gave me a sliver of advantage. Daniel slid a tablet across the table. It displayed live feeds of people in offices, luxury cars, and unfamiliar buildings. Names and faces scrolled across the screen. Every transaction, every meeting, every asset they control, Daniel said. Eleanor left it all here. And she made sure it would be traceable if someone tried to cover it up. I stared at the screen, recognizing none of the faces, but feeling their power like a dark cloud pressing down. Then Daniel leaned closer. There's one last step, he said quietly. Eleanor wanted you to trigger it. The final piece. My heart jumped. What is it? He paused. She planted evidence. Hard evidence. That will topple the entire network. But someone has to deliver it at the right moment. Someone has to bait them into exposure. I shook my head. I'm not a criminal. I don't know how to do this. Daniel's gaze was firm. You are now. Or you let them win. And they will never stop coming. I felt Mike tense beside me. You're telling me my brother-in-law is about to go head-to-head with dangerous people because, what? Loyalty? Love? Yes, I said quietly. Because she trusted me. And because she was protecting us both. The plan was intricate, almost too complicated to believe. But every line of Eleanor's notes made sense. She had anticipated their moves, predicted their mistakes, and built layers of protection. You'll need to move fast, Daniel continued. They've already begun searching for the missing files, the money, the proof. If they get to it first, it's over. For the next 24 hours, we prepared. I learned to navigate the surveillance system, understand the digital traces Eleanor had left, and memorize the faces of the people we were dealing with. Each file I touched felt like holding a live wire, dangerous, electric, impossible to ignore. At midnight, we set the first trap. A meeting was scheduled at a private office downtown. Eleanor had predicted it. According to her notes, 2 key men would arrive to retrieve missing documents they thought she had hidden. They were bold, arrogant, and careless, exactly as she had described. I watched through the monitors as they entered the building. Their every move was tracked, every decision anticipated. My pulse pounded in rhythm with the clock on the screen. Daniel whispered in my ear, "Remember, they underestimate you. They assume you're just a grieving widower. Use it." I nodded, gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. This was the moment. Eleanor's plan was coming to life. The two men stopped near a filing cabinet, exchanging whispers. I felt my stomach twist. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Every memory of Eleanor reminded me why I couldn't. I pressed a button on the tablet. Alarms blared inside the office. Lights flashed. Security footage triggered automatic recording to multiple servers. Outside, law enforcement, carefully coordinated by Daniel, was already on the way. The men panicked, fumbling with papers, realizing too late that they had walked straight into the trap Eleanor had designed. I stepped back, my hands trembling, my chest tight, but a strange satisfaction settled over me. She had planned this meticulously. She had trusted me to finish it. And I was doing it. Hours later, the men were in custody, the evidence secured, and the network starting to crumble. The phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from Daniel. "She believed in you. And you didn't fail her." I closed my eyes and let the words sink in. For the first time since her funeral, I felt a small, fragile sense of victory. But deep down, I knew the fight wasn't over. There were still loose threads. Still names unexposed. Still danger lurking in shadows. And somewhere, I knew, Eleanor was watching. Her plan wasn't just about revenge. It was about protection. And I was now the keeper of it all. I looked out the window at the city lights, feeling the weight of her trust on my shoulders. I whispered into the quiet night, "I won't let you down, Eleanor." And somewhere in the darkness, I felt as though she whispered back, "I know you won't." The sun rose slowly, pale and fragile, as if it, too, wanted to take its time after the storm we had just unleashed. I sat in Eleanor's chair, her favorite spot by the window, staring at the morning cityscape. The streets looked calm, ordinary. But I knew the truth. Beneath that calm, everything had shifted. The people who had once felt untouchable were now exposed, their lies unraveling piece by piece. And it had started with her. Daniel was gone for the morning, following up on loose ends, making sure the evidence reached the right authorities. Mike had left for home, exhausted but alive, leaving me alone in the house that had become my command center. I picked up Eleanor's notebook. Her handwriting stared back at me, each line echoing the love and fear she had carried all those years. I traced a finger along a sentence I had read a dozen times. "If they come for him, release everything." I understood now. Her death wasn't the end. It was the bridge. She had trusted me to continue the fight she couldn't finish. And I had. Hours later, Daniel returned, looking tired but satisfied. He handed me a thick envelope. Inside were confirmations, arrests, resignations, frozen accounts. The network that had threatened me, was collapsing. "They're done," he said simply. "For now." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "For now," I repeated. Because deep down, I knew danger never fully disappeared. But Eleanor had given me something stronger than fear. She had given me knowledge. She had given me the means to protect myself, and her legacy. I spent the rest of the day walking through memories of our life together, the ones untainted by secrets. Her laugh echoing in the kitchen. Her hand in mine on rainy afternoons. The gentle way she'd sip her tea and watch me read the paper. 38 years of love, intertwined with courage I had never fully realized. And then the final surprise came. A small box had been delivered to the front door. No note. No indication of who had sent it. I opened it carefully. Inside was a ring, a simple band engraved with both our initials, and a folded letter in Eleanor's handwriting. "Thomas," it read, "if you're reading this, it means you survived. It also means you understood. You were brave enough to finish what I started, and strong enough to face the truth." I am proud of you. Always remember, love isn't about knowing everything, it's about trusting each other even when the world is dark. I love you. Forever. Tears blurred my vision. I pressed the ring to my lips and whispered her name. The world outside continued as if nothing had happened. Cars drove by. Birds chirped. Neighbors went about their morning routines. And yet I knew everything had changed. I had entered a world I never asked for, faced dangers I never imagined, and survived because of her love and foresight. Weeks later, I returned to the storage facility one last time. Unit 317 was empty, cleared out under Daniel's supervision. It felt strange, standing there without the weight of secrets pressing down. I turned the key in my hand, the metal cold and real. It had unlocked more than a storage unit, it had unlocked courage, resilience, and a truth I could finally accept. I slipped the key into my pocket. It was a reminder. A talisman. A connection to Eleanor, and the life we had shared, both the ordinary and the extraordinary. That evening I sat by her grave. The flowers had wilted, replaced by fresh ones I had brought. I knelt and placed the small ring and the letter on the mound of earth. I understand now, I whispered. I understand everything. And I promise, I'll carry it all. Your love. Your courage. Your trust. The wind stirred gently, brushing against my face. For a moment, I imagined her standing beside me, smiling that quiet, knowing smile that had always calmed me. And I realized something powerful. Even in death, she had guided me. Even in secrets, she had protected me. And even when the world was darkest, love had been our weapon. I rose slowly, taking one last look at her resting place. The city lights glimmered behind me, life continuing around us. But I knew something profound. The story wasn't just about loss. It was about survival, courage, and the enduring power of trust. And as I walked away, the key warm in my pocket and her letter pressed to my chest, I whispered into the wind one last time. Thank you, Eleanor. For everything.